oh, let me tell you what happened last weekend. And you know that this particular cousin or friend is just going to talk on and on and on and on and never get to the point of what happened.
What is screenplay structure?
Ooh, very big question, right? But I would look at screenplay structure as how you tell a story. And depending upon the kind of screenplay you're writing, the structure is different. In general, we've all learned about 3-act structure in some way, shape, or form. That 3-act structure can then be broken down into just 2 acts. If you're writing a half-hour multi-camera comedy, it can be spread out into 4, 5, or 6 acts if you're doing a 1-hour drama. But your half-hour single camera and your features are usually told in 3 acts. And if you want to break it down and make it as simple as possible, your first act is your setup. It's giving me all the information I need to know of why I am here. Your second act is the journey to reach the goal. And then your third act is what happened now that I reached the goal, right? So it's your resolution. So you have your setup, your journey, and your resolution. And so if you can understand that anytime we hear a story, bedtime story, Dr. Seuss, what happened last weekend, we're all listening for the setup, the journey to success or failure, and then what happened after that. So to me, that's like the simplest way of talking about what structure is for a screenplay.
I like how you broke that down, because when we think about, let's say, a family friend or a bunch of friends getting together telling a story about what happened last weekend, it makes sense. If they leave out the second act, but when we think about a story that we're writing, I could see where things would get convoluted.
Yeah, because you also, even if you don't understand story structure, you feel it. So you have a cousin or a friend who doesn't know how to tell stories, right? So they come in and they go, oh, let me tell you what happened last weekend. And you know that this particular cousin or friend is just going to talk on and on and on and on and never get to the point of what happened, right? But amongst your friend group or amongst your family, they're like, no, let such and such tell it. Because you know such and such is going to give you the setup, the journey, and what happened, you know, the resolution. You know that you're going to get there. You know that they're going to give you the details that you need, nothing extraneous, or they're going to say, quick sidebar. And then they'll give you this extraneous stuff, and then they'll come back to the story and keep you following the journey, right? So storytelling is storytelling is storytelling, no matter where you're telling it, right? In a screenplay, it has to be more concise and it has to be visual. But even those people who don't specifically know, they can't give you the vocabulary, they don't have the words to explain, you know, how to tell a story. We're hearing people tell stories all the time. You know, like going back to that office thing, there's somebody in your office who always stands around the kitchen or whatever, and they have a story, you know, blah, blah, blah. And you enjoy their stories. And then there's somebody else who always has a story, and you're trying to sneak away from the conversation because you know you're going to be here for the next 15 minutes and have learned absolutely nothing. And so that's kind of how you know that your screenplay isn't working, because we're 30 pages in and I don't have any information. We're 30 pages in and I don't know what this screenplay is about. We're 30 pages in and I don't know why I've been dropped into it, right? I don't know what I'm here to witness, because there's a whole lot of talking and going around the, you know, bend and over the river and through the woods, but I still haven't the slightest idea what my protagonist is trying to do, or possibly who my protagonist is in the first place. Right? So sometimes that happens. But yeah, storytelling is storytelling. So if we start to allow, and it's hard when you're the writer, right? When it's on the page, because now there's all kind of pressure and stress and stuff. But if we allow ourselves to step away from it and just look at it like any kind of story, we can ask ourselves, like, does it feel like my story is moving forward? Or does it feel like people are just kind of talking around some things, you know? But that's why, again, people like me exist, because maybe you can't see that yourself. And I pride myself on being objective. My students tell me all the time, you're objective, right? I even had a student in one of my classes on the university level who said, can you teach the rest of our teachers how to be objective in this way? Because when I read their stuff, I don't make them become a particular kind of writer. I'm able to look at them as individuals, which means they write the way that they write. It's not my job to make them fit into this box, right? But a lot of the times you may send your work out and what you receive back is a whole lot of opinion about what your writing should be. And you should change this and it should be this and you should have that and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, that's a great story, but that's not my story. That's not the one that I'm trying to tell, right? So finding someone else who can objectively look at your stuff, they can help you to understand that your story is kind of going around in circles and not pushing forward. Just like when Uncle such and such starts telling a story, whether it's a drunken one or not, right? He's never going to get to the point, guys. We can go continue playing our basketball game.
Right. So when you say that you like to work with people and find out the way they tell a story and who they are, how is that? Because somebody could say, well, this is just who I am, and I don't really like to formulate full sentences, and this is just my style.
Yeah.
Is that acceptable?
If it's working.
Okay.
That's why you have to be objective. Because sure, we can say, I need full sentences. But if it's working, if the fact that they're shortening their sentences is helping me to feel the tone that they're setting, helping me to feel the urgency of the story. I read a screenplay the other day, and every single line of action was just one sentence. But it made the story simple because it was about a simple guy doing a simple thing. I didn't need more, right? But if this were a more convoluted premise, if it were a more dramatic story where I needed to feel more things, etc., then now my note would be, I need more, right? And here is why. But I was able to tell this particular writer, usually I would say I need X, Y, and Z, but this is working for you. Because I also want them to know the rule, right? I also want them to know someone else might read this and say X, Y, and Z. But it's working for you. The same thing is true with, I sometimes have people who instill their voice too much as a writer, and so it's jarring, right? Now I'm hearing you, and it's pulling me out of the story. Sometimes that works, though. Same thing with camera angles, right? It's a no-no for writers to infuse camera angles in their screenplay because it's distracting to the read. I'm into something emotional, then here you come with big capital letters, close in. I already know that I'm close because I feel it, because I'm reading the story. And now you just ruined it for me by yelling close in, as if the director won't feel that from the context that you've set up. But then I read somebody else's screenplay and they didn't use it a lot, but the moments that they did worked. It felt right. It didn't pull me out. So that's what I mean by you have to be objective to the story. You have to understand, what is this story trying to do? What does it feel like? What's its tone? What's its writer's voice? What is it intending to do? And are they doing that? And if they are, then why would I tell them to take away the things that are making that thing happen?
So if we took, let's say, a young Charles Bukowski in a writing program, and, there's just one way to do this, and then he's presenting this work that might be, might raise some eyebrows, but that's who he was, that's his style. Mm-hmm. And maybe he just didn't find the right teacher, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, not everyone's a teacher. Just because you know how to write doesn't mean you know how to teach people how to write. That's just the truth of it. And I think we take the education part of it not seriously enough, right? So maybe that is the case, because also teachers are only teaching what they've been taught. Depending upon how much experience you've had in the industry, you may think it has to be this way because I was taught it has to be this way. But if you're continuing to read screenplays, even as a professional writer, you'll see that people break rules all the time. People are doing stuff all the time. People make terrible stuff that makes it onto TV and onto the big screen all the time. So why would I tell my client that wouldn't work? You can't do that. It's just not true. You can do anything you want. Now, I'm going to tell you what the industry standard looks like. I'm going to tell you what people expect. But do you? Because maybe it's going to work. Now, there are some things that you just can't do. Like if it's unreadable, then it's not going to work. You know what I mean? If I can't follow the story because of whatever risk you're taking or creative licenses you're taking, then it's just not going to work. But if I can follow the story and I understand the story, a lot of those rules really do fly out of the window. They really do. I'm going to teach you what those rules are. But again, if it's working, then I'm not going to stop you from doing the thing that's working. Think about Aaron Sorkin and how much dialogue are in his screenplays. We're told all the time, you can't have that much dialogue. You can't have that much dialogue. Think about Shonda Rhimes and how many monologues she has in her screenplays. And we're told all the time, can't have monologues, can't have monologues. We're here are two examples where it's working very well for these two people. So I just don't believe in the extremes. I don't believe in, yes, this is going to work, and no, that's not going to work, because Hollywood lives like in that in-between space. And I think the reason I can give that information is because I have the experience to know. And then also because I am a teacher. So I am trying to teach you to fish and not giving you fish, right? So I'm always going to give you the why, the how, the possibilities, the what ifs. And sometimes that doesn't work for people because they need to know exactly what it is. But I try to explain to them, Hollywood is not one of those places, not black or white. It really isn't. It's all that stuff in between. So you're trying to write a story that is well executed, that's doing what you intended to do, that you're going to be proud of, that represents you as a writer. Because all of us are going to look back on something that we wrote and go, oh my God, that's terrible. Oh, I can't believe I wrote that. So you're going to grow from it anyway. So you just have to get to a place where you're happy with it. And it represents you. So for someone like Aaron Sorkin or even Tarantino, I'm sure there were people telling them, this is too much dialogue. I'm sure of it. But they were able to get in with whichever way they got in, because I don't know their stories, right? But however it is they got in, and it worked out for them.